It has finally happened. The move that we probably all saw coming, but we didn't want to accept that it was coming. Southwest Airlines, Matt, has finally decided that the bags fly free, no more. Now bags fly with a fee. So
Oh,
this comes on the heel of
it's just one
Southwest Air.
letter.
Yeah,
Bag
it
fly
is. But
feet.
so a quick recap here. Southwest Airlines, they used to have the open seating policy, which I just flew them the other week. It's still in effect, but it's coming to an
Okay.
end here in I think next month or two. And when they announced that, they also announced that that we're not going to change the baggage policy. And they have been the one airline that has touted this more than anyone else. Two bags technically, but it's bags fly free. You roll up with a family of 4, you got 8 bags. You can fly a family to, I guess not to Australia, but you can take a
Yeah.
lot of bags a long way.
I think I did 15 bags once to Australia.
Okay.
Because
So you get the
I had
idea.
status. Yeah.
And I think this is the place where we I feel like, if nothing else, we are experts in transportation industry. And I feel like this is an opportunity for us to apply some of our management consulting to Southwest Airlines. And I would say up until this point, there really were 3 things about Southwest Airlines that that I often flew it because of probably all 3 of these reasons. One, open seating, only because I am someone that does not have an airline status right now. So open seating was nice that like with a little bit of just planning, I could almost always be assured I was going to, board in group A or B. But most importantly, I was going to get my bag on the plane. Right. And the fact that like I had a good chance in an aisle because as long as I got on early. So I really like that. While I didn't check bags very much, I always enjoyed to have the option, especially every once in a while. You have to take sunscreen to Mexico. How do you do it? Got to check a bag. So that was a nice move. So I thought those 2 things are kind of the pillars to me of what makes up Southwest. But then, of course, the more simple thing is just, do they have direct flights generally where I want to go at competitive fares? Mm-hmm. So I think that we can look at this 2 ways, and you can take either side if you want. We can either say, in the Southwest, and to preface one more point here, was that the CEO of Southwest Airlines came on and said that like he made a little video, something along the lines of like, we're more than just open seating and bags fly free. I'm paraphrasing. We are, we're about customer excellence, blah, 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 blah. And I thought to myself, actually, I don't think that's the case at all. I thought those 3 things I listed were the ultimate move. Now, so there's 2 ways to look at this. One is to be like, and I think this is the more popular TikTok take. It's like, they've in effect killed the Southwest brand. Everything that was differentiated about Southwest is now gone. It is now exactly like every other legacy airline that exists.
I'll take that take.
All right, Matt, you can take that take. Okay, now the second take, I guess I will try to represent. I will steel man this, as they say, would be, in the end, while I liked the idea of free bags and I liked the idea of free open seating, in the end, I was maybe only really driven about route and price. Right. And that's the bet. The bet is the MBAs are like, Brandon says 3 things, but really when Brandon is making reservations, we know he's just going to look at the fare and he's going to look at, does the flight, is it the route that he wants? And it doesn't matter what Brandon says. It doesn't matter about any of that. That's what he's going to do, if you will, the revealed preference. So go ahead. You've already declared yourself. You're not buying that private equity view. You're saying they killed the brand. Why do you believe that?
Because now they're undifferentiated, right? Now there is really, there was probably, I don't know, 5%, 10% in the back of your head that you're like, oh yeah, Southwest. And you're looking at flights and they're like, maybe it's, $5 less, $10 more, whatever. It's in spitting distance of all the competitors. You're like, I generally enjoy that experience. That would be the differentiator. Now you're like, Southwest, I can't remember. Are they going Frontier or Alaska? Are they trying to become, the worst experience or the best of the undifferentiated, right? And you're like, okay, we'll roll the dice on this, and then probably whatever happens next is going to set your opinion on them for like the next 5 years, and you'll be like, I'm going to Denver. I'll fly Frontier. Like I'll suck it up. It's terrible. It's an hour-and-a-half flight. Whatever. As opposed, but I'll save $10, times 3 for my family, and whatever. I mean, that's the market they've entered. There's no like other thought to, oh, there's nothing that makes them stand out other than now they're just competing on price, and everyone says they're competing on experience, but realistically, like, I don't get that much. I mean, there are times when I'm like, I'm pleasantly surprised by this flight, and but then I don't really think about it the next time I travel because like you said, I don't really have status anymore. I've got American's lowest tier or whatever, but doesn't do me much. So yeah, when I'm buying tickets now, I'm just price conscious, which is what I'm sure the MBAs are like. You know what? Everyone says they like this other stuff, but really they're just looking at price because they know that the route Southwest is doing, except for their Hawaii flight, are mostly all under like 4 hours. They're under 3 hours, 2 hours, and you're like, I can have a little bit of discomfort to ride a bus. I can ride a bus for 2 hours, and that's what they are now. They are they are a bus line.
All right. Well, I guess because I think I firmly now put them in the legacy carrier category. So because I think you're right. I think there's the Sprint and the Ryanair and like who you are. When you're in that area, you are paying Frontier. You mentioned like you're paying for a very cheap ticket with a very poor experience. But like everybody knows going in freight, like there's no like you don't get on there and be like, oh, I'm surprised things aren't working well. It's like no,
you're like,
that's part of the experience.
I'm surprised that I didn't have to pay for seatbelts. Yeah,
right. Like I mean, like we get it. So and I do think Southwest is now firmly in the other category. And I do think they don't, and I think the thing that's odd here is that they don't really have the amenities. Like, if you're going to go legacy airline, like if Cote were here, he'd be talking about his status and trying to get American.
Yeah.
And it's like, they don't have the first class. They don't have the international routes. They don't have, the Uber luxury, massive rewards program. So it's sort of like, well, if I've got to go legacy, and you're like, I might as well try to, I might as well try to get some of these qualifying points for like rewards that are more meaningful. Like, the fact that like I could be A-list on Southwest, that just means I get to pick, or in this case, I get an assigned aisle seat. That's it. Like there's no better seat on the South. So I think that's another weird thing that they've sort of found themselves, if you will, if this probably doesn't make any sense, but I'll say it anyway. Sorry. They're like the low end legacy airline. You know what I mean? It's like, you have like the minimum reward. And the same thing about the amenities. It's like, well, if you've been on Delta flight recently, wireless is fantastic. Internet is like, it's like using the internet at home or almost. Like you get on Southwest, it's like internet probably doesn't work. If it does, like it's probably just texting. And so like there isn't any, like when you get on there, like there are no amenities on a Southwest flight because that was part of the brand. We were all equal. We're all equal on Southwest. We're just sit where you want. It's like we're like a team of people on like a field trip. We're all going together. We're all working together, but not anymore. Not anymore. It's like now every man for themselves.
Class. Is there a first class now?
Not yet, but I guess that will be the next thing. But I guess they'd have to retrofit the plane. So I think that won't.
No, you just throw up a screen and you give them a free Coke and now it's first class.
Give you like two bags of peanuts. So, exactly. Well, I think it's great. And I guess the final thought on this is like, I am always enjoy the calm side of this. And it's like one of the biggest things I look at when I'm looking at communications around changes. It's just sort of like, how honest are you and how do you treat your, if you will, your passengers, in this case, your customers? And it's like, and I think you see this all the time. Companies do it with employees. They do it with the customers. It's like when that Southwest CEO gets on there and he starts to tell you about how it's not about open seating and it's not about bags fly free. It's about the experience. You're like, you're telling me I'm an idiot. You're telling me like you are telling me that like I am
the
a toddler.
Experience of the things you just said you got rid of.
Right. Like it's just like, I mean, it is. It's like you are treating me and as if I am stupid. Right. You know what I mean? Because I have said this many times. It's like, if you're going to communicate this, I think you just come out and say, after careful consideration, we're going to make these changes as it will ultimately allow us to run a more profitable airline and to continue making sure that we have the flights that you want. That's it. That's all you say, right? Like, don't like, it's like, it's almost like, I always come back to like, it's almost like when Goldman Sachs is like, we want this to be a fun place to work. It's like, of course not. Like everybody knows that Goldman Sachs, if you're an analyst there, you're going to work 100 hours a week and it's going to be really hard and you may not like it, but it's very clear that there's a huge payoff potentially for you down the road. It's like no one, like they're not afraid to say who they are. So that's always what I like when companies is like, don't try to have it both ways. But then they did that, and that was to me the nail in the coffin. It's like, well, now you're treating me like I'm a stupid.
You're
Like I'm
gaslighting me.
stupid,
Yeah.
right? You can just
Yeah,
say
you're like,
you need to
know
change
what's
the
happening.
flights, but don't treat me like I'm stupid. So they treated me like I'm stupid. I've now just, of course, I will fly them again, I'm sure, but they will just now be in the, if you will, I will just put them in the matrix. When I'm looking at my pricing metrics, I'll just be like, okay, who's cheapest?
They lose that asterisk, that mental, like, oh yeah, I'll give them a second consideration. Now it's just like, speeds and feeds, we're just lining them up. Who's going to get me, who's going to get me to, Baltimore the best? And you're like, oh, United, Delta, Southwest, American, whatever.
I like it. And I think that's the way it should be. Like, you want to be treated as speeds and feeds. I'm now going to treat you like that. That's the relationship we have, Southwest. Yeah. Like, I look at you just like I look at everyone else. Like, I give you no grace. You give me no grace. And we have a very professional relationship going forward. But please don't ask me. Don't ask me to buy into the culture. I'm not here to buy into the culture. I just want to get from point A to point B, and I'm giving you absolutely no credit for anything else. So now, moving on here.
Not buying into the culture. Yeah.
I was going to say, one of the perpetual things, maybe I was just pushing, but like we did talk about it a lot, maybe mostly during the pandemic, was Zoom. Zoom had some massive net worth, and I continuously wanted them to buy Discord. I wanted them to buy Box. I wanted them to like piece together, I think I was calling it Zoom Box, but Zoom Box Discord, And I thought to myself, like, this would be perfect. It would be all of it together. So looks like now that's not going to happen. That ship has sailed, so it's over. But Discord is, and of course, we're going to get to Matt Ray's section about the stock market in a few minutes. But we'll postpone that for a second. Before the turmoil in the market this week, there were talks that Discord was looking for a potential IPO. So they were roughly valued at $15 billion in 2021. So I assume, whatever they're valued at now, they would, if you will, try to ultimately go public at a bigger rate. For those playing at home, which is only me, Zoom is now worth $22 billion. So I'm just going to say, like, I think there was a potential, because remember, Zoom was worth well over $100 billion at one point, right? They had like this massive equity, and I was like, you got to do something. Well, that was good for you. You was like, you got to do something with this, right? That would have been the whole thing. But having said all this, what's your take on Discord at 15 billion? Like, is that crazy, or is it actually shown value?
I mean, did they publish, like, the thing is,
no, they did not publish any financial metrics that we can see that I know of,
or user metrics. Like the user metrics, I mean, if you told me they had 20 million daily users, which I doubt they do, I'd be like, all right, it's hard to move that. It's hard to move that off to some other platform, but it's not like what they're doing is super differentiated, right? There's, we use Slack for free. We could easily move to Discord. We could easily move to, whatever comes down the pipe next.
If we were starting the group chat now, I think we would pick Discord, right? Like if we could go back in time, because Slack seems completely, they don't really want the public, the public free stuff, which I understand.
They don't want the thread. We get it. We get it.
We get that we're freeloaders, but like there just simply is no pricing model that accommodates us. Like we can't, we have no money. We can't pay for anything. So it's like they'll just do us a favor. So Discord, I think, is for sure what we would do today. I think you asked a good question. Who's using it today? My answer is your kids. I don't know of all three, but like kids are generally the ones using Discord.
But that's the thing, that there are also other platforms that provide similar services. Like one of my children had to sign up for Snapchat because that's what they were using for group chat, and one of her classes. And it's like, it wouldn't have occurred to me. I mean, obviously I'm old. I'd be like, what's wrong with WhatsApp? But can't you go back to Skype? But the thing is, like, this market, this field is just going to keep evolving and moving. And it doesn't have high barriers to entry, and you have somebody like a Snapchat or a WhatsApp who if they turn a certain knob or two, all of a sudden they're your competitor, and you didn't really expect to see them coming. And there are so many different tools available in this space. Somebody could come in, well financed with a different business model that tweaks these other things and has a slightly better offering, could displace it. I'm just saying 15 billion is a lot.
It is.
And
No, it is quite a bit.
and
Yeah.
how are they making their money? Like, digital stickers, retention. I mean, how's that working for Slack?
Well, you've kind of painted an interesting picture. It's almost like, here in Austin, right? There's like a famous street, 6th Street, where it's just like all the bars are, but they just like the actual physical structure doesn't change, but the names just like roll in and out. And then sometimes it's like a cowboy theme, and next time it's a techno theme. And there is something like you kind of hit on it before too. It's like there almost needs to be like a hierarchy of like the group chats. It's sort of like everyone uses an iPhone and is over 30. Okay, that's Apple Messages. Okay, you got some Android people and you got some European friends. Now you're in WhatsApp, right? Okay, like you're a tech podcast and maybe like you're catering to like people and professionals. That's probably Slack. Your kids gaming, that's probably Discord. Then you got like your Gen Z, they're like in a WhatsApp, right? And it just keeps going down. Or no, they're not in a WhatsApp, excuse me. They're in a Snapchat, right? And it's like, and then it's not even called Snapchat. It's called Snap now. So it's like a weird like hierarchy of like where the groups form. And at the end, it is kind of all the same features, which is kind of like a weird thing, right? It's like we could kind of all just use the same application, but nobody wants to use the same application, which is in itself an interesting phenomenon.
Well, and that like the monetization scheme is going to be like, oh, we're going to sell this back into AI training or, what have you, but it's junk. I mean, it's like, when Google started training their AI on Reddit and people are, told to put glue on their pizza. It's like, Mastodon is very similar to Reddit, right? The caliber of conversations, some of them are very good, very technical. I'm in a bunch of, sorry, I said Mastodon, Discord, right? Discord channels. Some of them are very technical, but then, like in the middle of any conversation, it can go off on a really divergent tangent. That's a feature, right? Unless you're trying to use this to train, this is how you should think about these, hard-hitting problems. And then, all of a sudden you have a thread about, yard maintenance coming out of a robotics thread, right? It's, yes, people derail things all the time. That's human nature. But it makes the data more, go eat some rocks and glue. I mean, come on.
Well, this is my pitch. This was my pitch to the Eric, the CEO of Zoom, right? It was like, he was the one that could have brought Discord into the enterprise and made people buy per seat licenses, but he chose not to. And I feel like now we should reveal the secret to starting any new chat-based company. I'm going to reveal that for you. I didn't know the story of Discord, so I'll just read one line from the article that I read. So here's what it says, quote, Discord was started by 2 tech workers who originally came together to build a video game studio. After releasing their first title, the 2 hit upon the idea for Discord after realizing they had difficulty communicating with each other online while playing a game. So for those that are deep in the tech nerd history, Slack was started as an outgrowth of a company. I guess Stuart Butterfield, right, was doing. He was trying to build some type of like game, but it wasn't just a game. It was like I don't know, it was some kind of like, if you will, like whatever higher level game that never took off, and then that they had a hard time communicating, and that's why they built Slack. So the key to starting any type of group chat communications is clearly to start a failed game company, and then along the way you discover that like, oh, it turns out what people really want to do is chat. And I think even Flickr has another story. I think Flickr's story also started by, I think, Stuart Butterfield and I think it's Katarina Flake. I can't remember her last name. Anyway, I think they came, it has another story. They were building something. They wanted to add the ability to post photos, and they figured out that all people wanted to do was post photos. So it's like, so I don't know. So it's either you do these ideas to then just discover the same ideas everyone's already working on, or maybe you just like, maybe it's just a good founding story. So like when you and I, we should just, we should just say we're building a game company, but start working on a
Mhm.
communications company. Be like, oh yeah, our game
Yeah.
failed. Like, you
Mm.
know, who knew what was going
Yeah,
on?
we decided that the gaming market too competitive. We'd go into instant messaging
That's right.
because
No
it's all
one,
greenfields there.
nobody has thought of instant messaging like we have, and we're gonna have stickers. That's what we're gonna say. That's gonna
Yep.
be fantastic. All right. Well, don't worry. Fear not, Software Defined Talk listeners. We're not moving to Discord. We're tied to Slack till they kick us out. They're still allowing us inside Slack. So if you haven't joined the Slack, go to softwaredefinedtalk.com, click on the Slack button there, sign up, find myself, Matt, and everyone else in there talking about stories like this. Now, a little bit of follow up and a little bit of kind of new news from last week. Last time we talked about, IDEs, and we talked specifically about Cursor. So maybe we should start there. So we talked about that. I've been saying that I think Cursor is fantastic. I love it. I think it's a great product, and I was unsure how much it was going to be worth going for it. So it turns out Cursor and the company AnySphere, which is the people behind Cursor, they are close to a $10 billion valuation. So this is a bit hard. And I guess there are some numbers here, Matt, because you're the numbers guy here. When we get to your stock analysis, I know you like the revenue numbers. It looks like they are very close to, I think, $100 million in, if you will, annual recurring revenue. So that's a good site. And they also cite some statistic like, I don't know how fast, but they're very fast to get to $100 million in revenue. And also those who've not used it before, Cursor really is just a front end built on top of VS Code. And the important thing is they're not building any LLMs. In fact, in the little drop-down box, you can pick, do you want to use your Claude? Do you want to use your ChatGPT? Whatever. So
Apple Intelligence.
They don't, no Apple Intelligence in that one yet. But so they don't have the cost of like trying to build an LLM, right? At least nothing to our knowledge. So they don't need to raise like $70 billion and build data centers, right? They're just using that. So having said all that, what's your take on this valuation at $10 billion?
So their valuation is 100x current revenue.
Right, but I'm sure they're saying they have a great growth
multiple. Everything is up and to the right. Everything
but it's like it's power law almost. It's like it's not just like not linear. It's definitely an exponent going.
Okay, and my follow-up question is, what is the TAM for IDEs? How much do people actually spend on IDEs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think it's. I don't think
it's 10 billion.
I don't think it's 10 million. It seems like you're breaking. You're not going to conclude that in your pitch deck. You're going to have to be like, we're not just an IDE. We're
redefining the market.
I think you'd have to do it this way. You're like, we're redefining the market, and we're literally replacing people. Like you have to go because I think you have to look at it like, no. You're paying 10 developers now. You're going to pay 5 next year or something like that, right? It's like, that's the only way you can get to a number this big is my guess.
Yeah. But I mean, we're not seeing people saying that, the IDs with LLM integration is failing. What they're saying is like the 10x developer because of AI is a myth because, one, people don't spend 95% of their time coding. There's just a whole lot of other stuff. There's, requirements and clarifications and, things that, the AI doesn't know so far, doesn't understand the business and the use case and, can't go and negotiate with product management about timelines and, testing and acceptance. And, there's a lot of stuff that can and will get automated and this will become more efficient. But, are you going to be able to drop, half your developers and get, 10 times the output? No. I mean, most of the survey data that I've seen so far has said, after extended use, you're seeing 20%, 30% productivity increase and development sustained, but not across like all activities. And if development isn't everything, the LLMs can't, mythical man month your meetings for you. That's true. So there's, I mean, it's developers are more productive, but it's at the individual level. It's not at the organization level. So
for sure,
you're still choke pointing on that.
All right, but hold on.
So
Let me make a little product pitch here for you, though. Okay, because so
okay,
I did a
okay,
little. I had not used GitHub Copilot,
I
and I
have,
still
yeah.
haven't used it extensively. So I reserve the right to change my mind. But the thing that I've learned, and there's obviously the very popular phrase agents and agentic, right? Which I hate. I hate those
Yeah.
things. But what I've kind of figured out is Cursor really has kind of introduced it in a way that they don't use those words. So there's two modes in Cursor, right? There's the, your coding, there's the code completion, which everyone's very familiar with. Writing a line of code, it kind of predicts, and you just hit tab or whatever, enter. There's the chat, very everyone's familiar with that. Like, hey, how do I do this? Write the code to do this. Okay. But then the agent part, which is really, they don't call it that, but they call it the compose window. Okay. The compose window.
Autocomplete.
No, but it's more than that, right? It's sort of the magic window, right? Because you could click on that tab and it's like, it can then, and I don't know exactly how this works. I don't know how the prompts work, but it sees all your files and all of your project, right? So then it's much more like it is a lot more like, if you will, coding with another person, like a more
like pair
senior
programming,
person, right? Pair programming. And it's like, and when you ask it to do things like in the file, it will go through, make all the edits and show you the diff, right? And then you can do accept or reject. It will also go out and like edit files for you. I'm sorry, add files, remove files, help you with the command line. So it's like this whole, like, that's the part that I think that's not, to the best of my knowledge and looking at Copilot from GitHub, it's not there yet. GitHub is not there yet. And when you talk to people about GitHub, it's mostly about like a better code completion. So I will say this, like, if you haven't touched that side of it, right? If you haven't touched that part, that's where I think the real magic is. And you don't have to, I think, my son was doing a little project and he asked me, he's like, hey, what are you using? I said, oh, I use Cursor. So he goes in there, he signs up for the free trial, and he proceeds to create something that does a good little task, but it's just this giant monolith. I mean, it's just one file of just spaghetti code, right? It's all I can do to like not jump in, but I'm just sort of like, looks good. You're making good progress. it's just crazy what's going on in there, right? Like, I mean, I won't go through, but it's just like, it's like Matt, you're like this. Like, you just feel like you want to move in front of the keyboard, but like, hold on, I have to do some tidying up before we can move forward. But like, it is a cool thing in the sense of like anyone can do it. And he had this pretty interesting, again, school project, right? Kind of a school project level. So I do think people who haven't used that are maybe more down on like this idea. Now, I think the way to come back at this are two things. One is like, I would assume GitHub is building this as well. Like, I assume I would think they've downloaded Cursor and they're like, whoa, this is really good. We should be doing that. That would seem like the easiest product management at GitHub would be like, hey, we should do what Cursor does. So I think they're going to get there.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like the fact that you don't have a moat, you don't have anything that prevents your competition from, doing what you're doing. Because they're using the same, IDE backend, they're using undifferentiated LLMs. And so really it just becomes the UX and packaging.
Well, there may be some magic. The part I don't know, the part I want to know more about is like,
but it's not a 2-horse race either, right? This is the Kentucky Derby. There's like 10 horses out there.
There's a lot of horses, but I guess it's like someone has figured out, there is, at least at the moment, I think they have figured out the right integration between all of this. So so there's like the perception of magic. And I guess, to your point, like, I just assume like there's probably tons of smart people doing it. But like, I'll give you another example. I did sign up for Gemini. I gave that one a shot just to see what's going on. But like, even in docs, like Gemini won't edit the doc. It leaves you in the chat. And it's like, oh, they don't get it, right? They won't make, like, if you use ChatGPT, they'll open up Canvas and they'll start editing their own little world. But it's really like when you get to that thing where it's making edits in the doc, whether it's source code or just a written doc, that is a new experience. So there is a little bit of like magic to it. I guess to your point, though, maybe that's the part, like, again, if I was GitHub Copilot team, this is all I'd be working on. I was like, we just have to replicate exactly this.
And that's the thing that, makes me think 10 billion seems a bit of a stretch, right? I mean, I can see them being a successful, IDE company. Like you didn't mention, JetBrains. It's like, my employer has an IDE integration for security stuff. And like, we see metrics on what enterprises
people are actually
using.
using.
Yeah. And like we led with VS Code because it's, you say it's ubiquitous, and then you start getting into these accounts. It's like there's a lot of JetBrains, IDE, the whole family, right? It's PyCharm, it's IntelliJ, it's they all share the same APIs for plugins. So it's like and then there are companies that are focusing just on being the plugins for those things. So it's like this space has a lot of competition, entrenched players, and enterprise inertia, right? And so, the Cursor guys, they roll up to a Microsoft shop and they're like, hey, why don't you spend, $2 million a year to get, Cursor for your big bank? And then Microsoft goes to the bank and says, we'll give you Copilot for free. Just re-up on your Azure, right? It's like you're just cutting their legs out from under them. Good luck getting to 10 billion. That's what I do think.
I do think, again, all the roadmap meetings at GitHub would be like, people are like, what are you going to do? I'll be like, hold on, let me start up Cursor for you.
I mean,
and then that's all I would be doing. I'd be like, well, this is what we do. So I guess we'll
but I ask Slack what it's like to compete against Teams. It's an inferior product, but
yeah, that doesn't matter for sure. Okay, well, I guess we'll leave it here. It's like, I guess it's sort of like we can always have two simultaneous thoughts. Cursor, love the product.
Full of simultaneous thoughts.
I'm just gonna say Cursor. I absolutely love the product. Love it, and I'm
gonna try
excited for you getting this valuation. I would say maybe take some money off the table, founders. And when you get this, like maybe you shouldn't. Like you should keep some of that, because I am worried about this valuation. As much as I love the product, I'm very concerned about the valuation. I'm very concerned that you may not make it at this valuation.
Fly high, Icarus, fly high.
Now, you mentioned something earlier. Now, there was another interesting thing that came out this weekend. So we can do a little, Matt, we'll play a little game with you. So there was a study. It was a very long PDF, and it basically studied how developers work and what they actually do. And it broke it down into 6 days. Okay. So I'll give you the quick list. There was a testing day, a bug fixing day, a coding day, a collaborating day, a meeting day, and then I guess a various day, which is everything together. So Matt, without looking at all the answers here, I want you to tell me from the idea, was the workday good? Just good. That's the question. And just as a percent, I want you to first, I think this is a real layup here. Which day do you think developers said was the quote unquote best working day, or the working day was good the most?
Probably what the coding day. Right.
Okay, good. That was the layup.
Okay. So I'm not looking. I got over here in the other window. I'm not looking.
Okay. Now on a percentage basis from 0 to 100, of course, I guess I didn't need to say that after saying percent, but nonetheless, I did. What percent of people on a coding day basically said it was good? Developers.
It's probably like 65, 70.
Okay, really close. 74% of developers who spent most of their day coding said it was a good day.
Yeah.
Now, on a coding day, what percent of the time was spent actually coding as compared to all the other activities? On the most, again, this is back to like, remember the context question. On the day that they code the most and that they're happy 74% of the time, what percent of that time did they actually spend writing code?
Survey says 30%.
Very close, 37%. Okay. So on a coding day, so this kind of goes back to your conversation before. Even on the day where they say they're coding the most, developers are only coding 37% of the time. So this is kind of back to that whole like 10x developer. It's like, well, I mean, if we just shut down all
the other days.
I was gonna say, if you decompose the 10x developer, it's like, well, how much time does even the 10x developer code? It's like, it's still, even on the best days.
10x developer, he skips meeting days, but 10x developer doesn't get promoted.
Okay, now what would you say on a bug fixing day? How much coding does a developer do?
Probably like 20, 15. I figure there's a lot.
They said it's only 11% on a bug fixing day.
Yeah.
And now they do have, I have to say this, I don't know. I didn't read all the formal definitions, but they do have a category here on bug fixing day. They have a category for bug fixing. So I don't know what the difference between fixing bugs and coding. I mean, it's kind of one and the same, but maybe not. Like, I don't know, like what you're like, I guess there's the triage and you have to think about it.
Yeah. Like, research, test some stuff, undo some stuff, I mean, and to the point of like developers enjoying days undoubtedly of that, what was it, 74% who love coding day. The other ones, I bet it was like the bug fixing day or even like the collaboration day where they're like
All right, bug
hashing
fixing.
out the idea.
I'd say bug fixing was number 3 on satisfaction. 60% of the people
Yeah.
said were happy with that day. Now the other day, testing day was the second, if you will. This is a little surprise to me. Testing was only slightly ahead. It was 63% of the people who spent the day testing were, if you will, said the day was good.
Because on those days, is going to throw some code in there too, right?
Right. So on those days, they spent 11% of their time coding, 11% of their time bug fixing, 16% of their time testing, and there's a few other things going in there as well. So like, I kind of thought testing would be lower down, but clearly,
I mean, I get it, right? You've got your happy path code you wrote, and then you introduce it to the real world, and it's like, oh, we got some bugs. You need to make some better test coverage because of these edge cases that you didn't handle. And it's still you still are like battle testing your ideas, and it feels good as a developer, right? You're improving what you did. You're feeling proud of your work, hopefully.
All right. Well, those 3 days all represent people, if you will, over half the people were happy, with the lowest being 60%. Now we're going to get into the days that developers clearly don't like. All right. One, I think, is clearly not surprising, right? It was the meeting day. The meeting day, only 48% of people say it was a good day, and they spend only 6% of their time coding. So it is kind of back to this 10x developer discussion. Like, hey, man, if you get days, although I don't know, I don't think this is developers are unique here. I think any time you spend a day, although friend of the show, and you subscribe to his newsletter, Richard Seroter, he writes a daily newsletter. It's very good. And oftentimes some of the links from his things get in here. But he always does like a quick, like 2-sentence, like, if you will, open to his newsletter. He said the other day that he was in 14 meetings in one day, and he said it was still a great day. And I was like, I don't think so. I don't believe you, Richard. So I don't know. 14 meetings in one day, even if only 30 minutes apiece, that's too many. All right. So that was meeting day. Then collaboration day, people are slightly happier there. I don't even, collaboration's it's kind of a nebulous topic. I guess it means you're kind of in meetings, but maybe you're kind of just kind of in meetings,
but you're still technically oriented. You're working the problem space. I mean, I could see this. Yeah. Maybe it's not just developers talking to developers. You're engaged with product, and they're like, well, it needs to do this. And the developer's like, why would anybody do that? Right. But there's the whole like give and take of you're still working on your idea,
I guess. So those people on those days, only barely 50% happy. So a little bit more than a meeting day. And then finally on the various day, which I don't know what that means. I think that just means like a chaos day. Like you have no idea what's going on. Like you're being asked for a million things. You're in meetings, whatever, things like that's clearly a day everyone is at least happy. And that's only 40% of the time. So I guess, the survey reveals probably what we already knew. It's like developers prefer to be coding most of the time. If they're not coding, they probably want to be testing. And if they're not testing, they probably like to be bug fixing, and generally they don't want to be collaborating or meeting with people or working with things that are not related to coding. So it's a pretty good survey. It's a very long PDF. I don't know if there's any like huge, interesting milestone, but it was interesting to see. One of the biggest things, and the person that posted this in the Slack, whose name I forget, but thank you for doing it. The one thing that was really interesting is like looking at all of the tasks. There's basically 15 to, let's call them 3 major categories and 15 different subtasks that people do in a given day. And this is kind of back to like, I mean, this kind of applies to everyone. It's like, I know your job's customer success, and I'm in offering management, and Cote's in, developer relationship. But it's like, it is interesting when you look at like, how much time do you spend doing the thing in your title versus like what it takes just to work at a company. That is like, it's just always an interesting grid. So highly encourage you to look at the developer survey. Maybe you can figure out if you like it or you dislike it, or maybe you can figure out like some things that they missed. Any final thoughts on the survey, Matt?
Well, I do like that breaks is highest on bug fixing day. I'm not sure what that's about. And helping is up top on collaborating. So, that feels good. Right.
Yeah, that's good.
I like the helping tasks.
Well, one other thing for you specifically that came out of Slack is I did want to let you know, Matt, that you can use Copilot in Emacs. Several, Chris.
Oh, I know.
So are you going to do that?
I know that. I know that. I read through it and I was like, that's just too much work. I mean, because you're maintaining something that doesn't want to be there. right? And like at no point is somebody like, you know what, this we're going to make this a fully first class citizen of Emacs. It's like, no, this is, you're shoehorning the, you're kicking this to fit somewhere it didn't want to be. Um, and maybe it's coming, but I could just kind of resign myself to like, I'm going to let this agentic IDE stuff flow over me and be subsumed by VS Code.
Yeah.
Well,
I will
and I
say
didn't
this,
really like it, which is
you're
why
in
I'm
good
like,
company though.
yeah.
Like I would say,
Oh,
like,
I know.
In our completely unscientific Slack survey, there was a really good thread about talking about a lot of these tools. I won't summarize it all. You have to go join the Slack. But I would say people estimated they were anywhere from 10 to 50% more productive using one of these tools. And there was but there was a lot of pushback that like, and this we're seeing more of around, and it's kind of like the example I said before, my son. It's like, well, sometimes these apps can kind of lead you down the wrong path. You end up with a giant monolith and it's just, a whole bunch of code that needs to be refactored. It's a big mess. So maybe thinking more upfront and kind of doing it yourself. I think, there's definitely an argument to be made for that.
It's really just a question of, are you going to support this? If no, I'm serious. If it's a one and done, which rarely is actually the case, ship the monolith and you're done. I mean, because I've got like a whole folder of one-off shell scripts that I've never reopened. Most of them are just there like, oh, I might want this again later. But if I would look at them now, I'd be like, oh, that's not how you do it. Or, oh, this would have been better in Perl or Ruby or, some other more appropriate language, but it's, some huge bash monolith that worked at the time. And now when I look at it, I'm like, I have no idea what's happening here. Right. But I don't need it anymore. And at the time it solved his problem. And, but if I was thinking this is something I'm going to need to maintain and evolve, I want to understand it more at the base level. So I'm gonna like slow the IDE, the LLM down. I'm gonna be like, no. Let's do this the right way, or explain it to me again, or make sure that I followed through all this. So,
all right. So I think let's channel a little Gen Z here. I think this is what we're gonna say. It's like, I think it's okay. Vibe code your personal projects and your school projects. Just vibe code that, baby. Just absolutely have it spit out something.
Especially the school product.
Make it a Jupyter notebook. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to reuse anything. You don't need constants. You don't need to make this thing readable. You need this to work one time.
Comments are for humans.
That's right. Vibe code to your life, to your desire, as much as you humanly want. Okay, but when you're working on, like, if you will, production, highly scalable software, maybe it's like you need to really, you want help, but if you need to be overlooking that. Right? You need to be looking over that a little bit more. So again, we're not against vibe coding. There's a place for it.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, as we kind of wrap up here, it was a rough day in the stock market. Again, no one should come to us for any investment advice. We are absolutely not qualified to be issuing any investment advice. But I know you had some open orders. So give us a little Matt Ray, not Diablo, as I was saying before, Dalio. Give me the Matt Ray Dalio update on how are you navigating this time of uncertain investing?
Well, I tried to short Tesla. My order didn't get submitted. It could be a factor of being overseas, and there's some things you can't do in a US bank account from overseas, and that might have been something that got triggered. So I did try to short Tesla. It had been in the back of my head for like 6 months. I'm like, I really should short that. There's no way they're worth more than the rest of the auto industry. And and then I was like, turns out everyone's finding out, he's a Nazi, and this is going to break the right way. And so I tried to put in and failed. My order was canceled, and I probably missed out on about 10 grand in a week, but and I probably would have kept shorting longer. So that didn't work out. I still think there's more room to drop, but again, not an investment channel, but it's there's so many headwinds against Tesla as a stock. I mean, like, people are trading them in for below market value. They're changing the logos on their cars so you don't know they're driving a Tesla. I mean, that's not a healthy sign, right? And, it's just to me, I keep going back and trying to trying to short it still. We talked about it previously. I sold all my Nvidia right around the time that the DeepSeek popped, and and then I kind of like I took my 550% return over 5 years, which was very nice, very
Right.
very nice.
So you got back in.
Yeah, but I also was like, I'll put in another, a third of this and a backup order. If it ever drops, I'll pick it up on a bounce and it'll go back up. Well, I caught it on the down.
You caught the dead cat, if you will.
It's bouncing around on the
Mhm.
bottom, but my rebuy of Nvidia, a third of what I had before, is now down. But of course, everything's down right now. So
Well,
I'm
I
just
think
holding tight.
I was just thinking like I have no stock advice. I my advice
Oh
is
no,
always the
no,
same.
none of this advice.
I
This is
always my entire portfolio is like I just buy the index funds. I never sell. That's all I do.
yeah,
That's all.
yeah.
That's really all I do. So, but I do think the one thing I was thinking about if I was to like try to sum up the whole economic climate, it's like we are certain of the uncertainty, right? I
Oh
think
yeah.
that is the one thing that's really the only thing you can say. It's like if markets generally don't like uncertainty, like that's all we have planned for the foreseeable future. So I don't know. I mean, it just seems,
That,
and I
that
do think even in your day jobs, I'm sure everyone's kind of seeing like having the same kind of conversations. It's just like, well, based on what we think now, we're thinking about doing this, but we're kind of uncertain about Q4 or this next year,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
just like because that's the one thing. So I don't know, but like, does it make it better that we're all like we're all 100% sure we're uncertain? So like, does that therefore like is that create its own weird group thing? It's like
Yeah,
what
it does.
nobody knows, but
It
like
does.
somebody maybe knows.
That's how I think about stuff now. I'm like, okay, assuming things go sideways, what should I buy? Because this is how I got kind of started in investing. Was like at the beginning of COVID, I was like, all right, what happens in a lockdown? So people are stuck at home. They're gonna do a lot of video streaming. They're gonna do
Order
internet
online,
chats. They're gonna
Amazon,
buy
right? Yeah.
games. That all worked out really well. I mean, but it's not exactly
You had a
groundbreaking.
good thesis,
I had a good thesis,
it
right?
all
And my
worked out,
thesis
right?
right now is like, what do you do when everything goes sideways? I was like, do you buy chicken futures, right? Because like price of eggs goes up, but what if like people are getting sick and they stop eating chicken? I don't know, right? And it's just like you kind of work through these permutations and you just end up not doing anything. But yeah, so that's where my head is right now. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just take this out and go buy a house or something. But the interest rates are falling. It's I don't know. Things are bad.
Things we don't know. Well, like I said before, we are certain of the uncertainty. And don't worry, for those that don't want to follow our investment advice, Matt Ray Dalio will be back in a few weeks if something else happens. Like,
But
I don't know.
I do not have good advice. I just have like observations, and I can report on what I did, and it's not always good.
We'll call it vibe investing. It doesn't mean we don't always make money, but we have a good conversation along the way. That's all you care about. So
Yeah,
that's all that
it wasn't
matters.
about the money you made. It was the friends you made on the journey.
The friends along the way. Well, no matter what, Matt, I'll say this. I guess Millennium, which is I think a large hedge fund, it says it was reported they lost $900 million very recently. So so there you go. Like no matter what happened this week and you're at your job, like you didn't lose $900 million. So you're probably $899 million ahead. So think about that. All right. Well, listen, a couple things here. There's some conferences this week. So for those of you that listen very soon, there's DevOps Day Chicago, March 18th. I think our friend Brett will be in town. If you see him, he should have software defined talk stickers. Hopefully he'll be giving them out. There's SRA Day London, March 27th, 28th. Cote is speaking. There's a nice, if you will, discount code in here. Also, for those in London, there's what do we call it? There's Monkey Grass. Yeah. So there you go. So you can go hang out with I think those are the Red Monk guys, right? Red Monk team. Go see what's going on with them. And then there's various other conferences that'll be happening in May. So go find them. Cote's at a bunch of them. Who knows? Maybe Matt and I will eventually show up at one of these as well.
Someday.
On listener feedback this week, one, if you like a sticker, all you have to do is send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. Happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. And JD recommends the DuckDB local UI. So this is sort of like if you have a bunch of tabular data and maybe you don't want to just use the DuckDB, if you will, command line interface. Well, they have like he almost described it as like a notebook, kind of a Jupyter notebook kind of style thing. So you can load up a bunch of data in it and you can do a bunch of exploration in it. So it's a cool little tool. It's one of these things sort of, it's sort of like the first step away from Excel. You're like, wait a minute, I've got a CSV. It's really large. I want to do some queries. I would like to be able to do some queries and even maybe share them with others. That's when maybe you would be like, I'm going to play around with DuckDB. Or you can load it up into a giant Excel spreadsheet, create a bunch of pivot tables that nobody but you understands, and then you can name it V1 and email it to everybody. So those are your options. But like, yeah, if you want to, if you're ready to like maybe put down the Excel for a little bit, check out DuckDB, the local UI. Now, having said all that, Matt, you've already given us some stock advice. You've given us all kinds of advice. What kind of recommendation would you like to give us this week?
Well, two short ones. I re-upped my subscription to Wired. I had a subscription for a long time. It had kind of lapsed. I was just having a hard time keeping up reading the internet. And but yeah, they've been doing a lot of like high quality reporting lately, especially about like what's going on with Doge and who's doing what to which agencies from the cyber angle. And so I figured, throw them a couple bucks and re-up my subscription. It's good stuff. My other completely random recommendation is like my bed was kind of creaky. Like anytime I got up and out of it, it was just like, it was just noisy. And so, it's from IKEA, and obviously there's a bunch of IKEA hacks out there for it. Go if you have a creaky bed, go get some felt tape and just line the where the boards, whatever the bed boards, whatever those things are called. Put that on there. It's awesome. It's like
makes all
it's
the sound go away.
It's just completely just night and day. It's amazing.
Like a new bed, huh?
It's like a new bed.
All right. Well, I will.
And cheap. It was like $8.
I like it. I like cheap. I don't know.
Cheap
I
hacks.
don't know if,
good hack.
All right. Well, it's good. Well, that's the perpetual search for the perfect mattress continues on. As I listen to all of these different podcast ads, there are no shortage of mattress companies out there. So,
but this was
maybe
a bed.
Maybe
hack.
Just felt strips. Maybe that's all you really need. You don't need a new mattress. You just need felt strips. So. All right. My recommendation this week is I got this Belkin MagSafe charger. So it's 3-in-1. So you can do my watch, my AirPods, and my phone. I'm very late on the MagSafe. I've never really had anything that used MagSafe on, you know what I'm talking about, Matt, the little, the little magnetic thing. So I had another charger, but like my phone would, sometimes I'd lean on it and it didn't do a good job. Didn't always got it. So because I'm cheap, I didn't actually pay the list price for this because I thought it was a little too expensive, but I got it off Facebook Market. And it turns out I actually do like it. It's nice to have on your nightstand a place where your phone actually, if you will, clips in and you can actually see that it's charging. And I also like the fact that you can, if you will, turn it on horizontal. I guess, was it portrait? No. Yeah, portrait mode, I guess. And then it gives you like an alarm clock view. So it gives you like giant numbers, right? And it's like, oh, this is nice. I can actually see what time it is without having to, like, if you will, pick up the phone. So again, I don't think it's worth full price. I wouldn't buy it on Amazon, but if you can get yourself a cheap one, this is like a Matt Ray. It's almost like if you can cobble together one or someone can buy you this, I think that's what you want. I don't think it's worth, what is it here? It's $99 on Amazon. I think it's too much. I got mine for $40. I think it's worth $40. That's what I'm going to say. So how's that for the ultimate recommendation? Don't pay full price. Just pay a little less.
I wouldn't pay full price for this, but it's good.
I did like it though. I thought it was cool. So check that out. Okay, well, if you want more recommendations, what you should do is go over to softwaredefinedtalk.com. You should join the Slack. There's tons of people in there talking about all kinds of things, some technology related, some not technology related. If this is the first time you're listening to Software Defined Talk, welcome. Can't believe you made it to the end. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast just using the podcast player you're in right now. And with that, we will talk to you next time.
Bye.
All right, Matt, we did it. Although I was unable to open the chat during the, I can't like talk and host and do it all. So did I miss anything good in the chat? Was there anyone?
Well, a little bit of spam.
Graham's in there. Oh, Graham
Yeah.
with the correction on landscape. Yeah, not portrait. Good. I should have. See, this is why I didn't have the chat open. I didn't read that. All right, Matt. Well, here we'll get out of here on a very important thing. I was going to announce this. Every year at this time, I think I force us to talk about daylight savings time. But now, because it's hard for us, because like hard in the world of our little podcast, it makes scheduling difficult. But and for a long time, I've been thinking they just should do away with it, right? I want it always to be that. But you know what? I've looked at it. Yeah. I've looked more into this, and I feel like we should retire the topic because here's what it comes down to. It's like it is pretty much a 50-50 issue. 50% of the people only want, if you will, standard time, and the other 50% only want daylight savings time.
I don't care.
So as a daylight savings time person, because I want more light, I feel like I kind of win because most of the year is in daylight savings time, and I should just take the win. I should shut up about it and be like, I got to give my standard time people, I got to give them a few months where they get what they want, but most of the year I get what I want. And there isn't any, I don't believe this is an issue that can ever be, if you will, agreed upon. What is your take? Should we give up on the daylight savings discussion?
We can stop talking about it. I mean, and you're saying it's one side versus the other. No, I'm on the side of just choose one. See, that's the third choice. I'm like, it doesn't have to be a coin flip. Just flip the coin. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think so.
Just flip it. I don't care. Once the change,
making 50% of the people mad. You flip that.
I don't care.
Flip it.
I don't care.
I think you can't do it.
But it's not 50%. This is like roulette, right? You say it's 50-50, red or black, but you forget there's two other numbers. There's the don't care numbers, right? The don't care people who are out there saying like, look, as soon as you make a choice, we're in the majority. See how that works?
Could be. It could be a 51-49 kind of
exactly.
issue. Who gets the double zero? The double zero on the roulette table that goes with you. I don't know.
I'm the double zero.
I'm just saying. I'm committing to just being happy with what we have. I'm like, you know what we have today. The status quo has won.
Status quo is everyone is unhappy. That's 99%.
But only part of the year. Like only part of the year are you unhappy.
I know.
It just depends on which side. Like you have part of the year you are happy. So. I don't know. I do think this other thing I was thinking about, I think it tracks with like your age and your, if you will, what you're doing in life. Because like when you're relatively young and single, you want more late. You stay up later, you sleep in longer, and you want time at the end of the day. When you have small children, because they're up so early, you're like, we got to have this sun out at 6 a.m. We got to have stuff to do. No, so maybe that's what it is. It's a shifting preference.
No, I think it's a mental construct. I think if the clock stopped moving around, you just deal with it.
Just deal with it. Suck it up. I like it.
Yes.
I like it. All right. Well, on that note, I want everybody in the chat, appreciate you all watching. I'm sorry I was not able to participate. We will be back most likely at this time, which I guess is daylight savings time now in the U.S. And Matt is just forced to join us whenever that is at his early morning Australia.
Just deal with
Hopefully
it.
We'll be there.
Double zeros.
So, appreciate everyone hanging with us, and we hope to see you in the Slack, and we'll see